Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this video series I would like to give the definitive answer to three of the most important questions that we face as a species. Number one, why do we have so many problems? Number two, why aren't we solving our problems? Number three, how do we solve our problems? As you can see, all three questions have to do with problems. And since we have so many problems, and since there's more confusion that surrounds this subject than there is on any other subject, I have created a very special teaching tool to help me answer these three questions. My special teaching tool uses knowledge in a way that's never been seen before. But before I tell you more about my special teaching tool, and before I give the definitive answer to three of the most important questions that we face as a species, I would like to give my overall perspective based on 25 years of extensive research and analysis. And I have concluded that everything in our society of any significance has everything to do with the fact that there is something seriously wrong with us. For starters, there's something wrong with our health, our behavior, our mentality, and our belief system. The problem with our belief system is that most of us don't know that we have an inaccurate belief system. Most of us don't know that there are three stages of knowledge and that there are three stages of false knowledge. Most people don't know that most of us don't know that we have false knowledge in place of the knowledge we need in the first stage of knowledge, where knowledge is acquired. Most of us don't know that we're making mistakes, bad lifestyle choices, bad applications in the second stage of knowledge, where knowledge is applied. And most of us don't know that most of our problems in the third stage of knowledge are 100% within our control, where knowledge is manifested. So when we think of our belief system, think of the three stages of knowledge. Think of acquired, applied, manifested. Or think of thoughts, actions, reactions. Beliefs, causes, effects. Belief system, lifestyle choices, feedback system. The things we think in the first stage of knowledge, the things we do or have done to us in the second stage of knowledge, and then the things we get in the third stage of knowledge. Now, so that's the problem with our belief system. Most of us don't know we have an inaccurate belief system. The problem we have with our mentality is that we have the wrong mentality. We have an exchange mentality where we compete for resources on an abundant planet, when we should have a gift mentality and cooperate and share the abundance this planet has to offer. And then the problem with our behavior is that we have a dark side to our behavior. And then the darkest of the dark side of our behavior, or the worst of us, or the sickest of the sickest of us, own and control every major sector of human endeavor. So they are in a position to brainwash the masses. They can misdirect all of our so-called experts, and then our so-called experts can turn around and misdirect all of us. So that means our so-called experts are not the true experts. And then the problem with our health is that we are sick. We are an extremely sick species, where one of the worst symptoms of all is the dark side of our behavior, where we now prey upon our own species. So this is a vicious cycle where the dark side of our behavior is the number one source for false knowledge, which is keeping us from finding the knowledge we need. The number one problem with knowledge is we don't have the knowledge we need, and it's obvious we don't have it, otherwise we wouldn't have any problems. And the number one reason why we can't find that knowledge is because we have false knowledge in its place. In other words, we cannot learn anything when we think we already know. So those are two forms of ignorance where we don't know, and those are both in the first stage of knowledge. So we can start our journey off in life on the right path, where we have knowledge and make good applications, and end up in paradise, which is simply a place where we don't have problems that are within our control. Or we can start our journey off in life on the wrong path, in Plato's cave, if you will, with false knowledge, making bad applications or mistakes, and end up with problems that are within our control. We're no longer in paradise. Simple. All we have to do to go back to the garden, so to speak, is to find the knowledge we're missing. Unfortunately, there are a lot more problems of knowledge besides those two forms of ignorance. There are 12 sources of false knowledge and 7 wellness factors. And the easiest way to deal with every one of these obstacles is to simply test an idea as time has come. You see, solving problems is not that difficult. All we have to do is satisfy two groups of needs. Unfortunately, most of us are not willing and able to do that. which is why I added 2 preliminary steps to the only thing we have to do, thereby perfecting a 3-step process. The first step addresses the willingness issue on a temporary basis, so we can see what we're missing, and then be in a better position to take the second step, where we want to correct 5 main mistakes on a permanent basis. And then once we add these 5 main mistakes onto our list of mistakes to correct, we'll finally be in a position to do the only thing we have to do, and that is to satisfy these 2 groups of needs. And I call these 2 groups of needs the science and art of solving problems that are 100% within our control. The science has to do with the first group of needs, and the art has to do with the second group of needs. The science has to do with the law of cause and effect and is linear. The art has to do with the ripple effect and is circular. The science has to do with satisfying 12 essential needs, thereby removing the primary causes. The art has to do with satisfying 2 additional temporary needs, thereby dealing with subsequent causes as well as subsequent needs. The science has to do with knowledge of how to live, where we nurture the trees of life. And the art has to do with knowledge of how to adapt, where we have altered the trees of life, which in turn has altered us. And the science has to do with the oneness of disease based on the anatomical limitations we were given at birth. And the art has to do with the uniqueness of disease based on the anatomical limitations from making mistakes that have damaged our anatomy. So all we have to do to solve every problem that is 100% within our control is to satisfy these 2 groups of needs. And since most people are not willing and able to do that, the best place to start is with the very first of a 3-step process that I perfected. Remember, the first step addresses the willingness issue because we're only going to be doing something on a temporary basis. Then once we get to see what we're missing, we'll have an aha moment. We'll have a brand new reverence, and we'll realize, oh my God, life is an illusion. All these systems that have been trying to solve my problems all these years will never be able to solve my problems and won't be able to solve yours, because the solution to every one of these problems lies within each and every one of us. Most of our problems are self-inflicted. That means you are the only one who can do something about it. The problem, you don't have the knowledge, and 2, you probably won't be willing to do it if you found out what you had to do. That's why we want to do something on a temporary basis. That's why we want to test an idea as time has come, so we can simply see what we're missing and realize life has been an illusion. Life is not complicated. There's one common link to almost every one of our problems. We're making very simple mistakes. We're not satisfying our essential needs. And when we don't do that initially, we create additional temporary needs. So we have to satisfy those 2 on a temporary basis. But our additional temporary needs are going to change as conditions change, and will vary from one individual to the other, even within that one individual's own lifetime. So it's going to be real simple for most of us. All we have to do is apply the science, remove the primary causes, and in most cases that's all we have to do. But for a small percentage of us, it's going to be a little more complicated because we've damaged our anatomy, and plus we've damaged the environment as well. So we're going to have another group of needs we must satisfy. And this is going to depend upon the damage you've done individually to yourself, unknowingly mostly. And we have to take in consideration what's happened to the environment, as well as our own genetic makeup over a certain period of time, because our ancestors have been making these mistakes for a long time. We've been on the wrong path for way too long. And the problem is that everyone's in love with it, everyone's addicted to it, the world revolves around it, it makes us sick. Sickness begets sickness. Now the sickest of us takes advantage of the rest of us being sick, and they can't do that unless they keep us sick. So everything in our society of any significance of all has everything to do with our health, or more specifically our lack of health. And why is that? Because we have a dark side to our behavior, and we're using the wrong mentality. So with the wrong mentality, we create the absolute tool of control, money. And then with the wrong belief system, we'll continue to keep making mistakes. When you can control what people know, you can control what people do. So everything related to health has to be controlled by the status quo in order for the status quo to remain the status quo. And when I'm referring to the status quo, I'm not referring to the actual systems themselves. I'm referring to that very small group of people who own and control every major sector of human endeavor. They're brainwashing all of us at a level most of us have absolute no conception of. Even those who are awake have no idea how they've been brainwashed since children to believe certain ideas. I've gone back and looked at TV shows I watched as a child. I'm going, oh my God, they were planting in that wrong information way back then, and now they're doing it at a higher level than ever. More than ever. My God, it's frightening to think what our children's belief system, our children's belief system is going to look like in the future if we don't change what we're doing. It's going to be harder and harder to get out of this cave of ignorance. But the first step is to be willing to admit that we don't have the answers. And now we got to find the courage to do something we've never done before. We got to break away from that stream that's going the wrong direction. It's not easy to break away from the herd. That's why we got to reach the tipping point. If we don't reach the tipping point, things will never change. We got to get enough of us to do the first of my 3-step process to get everyone else's attention. There's only 3 ways to correct 5 mistakes that are causing most of our problems. 2 of those ways most of us aren't willing to do. So it's a waste of time. Sure, it makes your life better, but we're still in hell because no man is an island. The individual cannot escape the collective. And no one has a right to bring the rest of us down, but yet the vast majority of us are bringing all of us down. But it's time for the trim tabs of society. It's time for the first wave of heroes to step up and test an idea as time has come and be an example. Help us reach the tipping point. So then the second wave of heroes can jump on. And that's when all those geezers are going to jump on board. It's going to be exciting to see Grandpa out there skipping around and Grandma having a life again. This is an exciting time to live. We have a time in life right now to transform this planet so fast we won't even believe it. But it begins with you. I realize there are 3 waves of heroes. And right now, the only people that matter really are the first wave. Although this message is for every one of the 3 waves, you just might not be ready for the second wave yet. Who knows? You may be watching this 5 years since I taped it, and we've already reached the tipping point long ago, and we're already in the garden looking back in amazement at where we were and what we were doing and how we couldn't figure out there was such a simple solution. So all we have to do is the very first of a 3-step process, and I've uploaded a video that explains exactly how to do that. I'll provide a link in this video, in the description, and a link here once I figure out how to do it. And we can finally reach the tipping point. So it's time to get excited. It's time to do something you've never done before. Test an idea as time has come. Do the first of my 3-step process so you can see what you're missing. And then you'll have done the second step on the hero's journey. The first step is, do you have the ears to hear? Well, hopefully if you're still listening now, you've got the spiritual ears to hear this message. The second step on the hero's journey is, do you accept the mission? Or are you going to reject it? Prove that what I'm saying is true. There are videos out there of people doing what I'm talking about. Joe Cross, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. Juice Saved My Life. Dozens of people are doing this. The transformation is so amazing if we can get enough people to do this. Everyone you know is going to go, oh my God, look at Fred, look at Mary. Look at them. They could barely move. They looked like death's door was around the corner. And now look at them. They look better than me. So, in closing, all I can say is you guys are in for a treat.